Hey, what's up, guys? It's Casey Santana here with Rich Soil Podcast. We have another guest on deck today, and I'm excited to share a little bit about his story, a little bit about his brand, and a little bit about the mission that he's fighting through, I would say, since it's not the easiest thing to do right now, especially in today's market. But we have Bryan Buckley. Thank you for coming on today. I appreciate
Oh,
you.
it's awesome. Great to be here, and thanks for having me.
Of course, thank you. I see that you have your it's HVGC. I always mess up the acronyms there. Behind you, your logo, and you're wearing your Brothers hat. A
Yeah.
little bit about that, just so that everybody knows who Bryan is. He is the founder of Battle Bros Foundation, and he is the CEO and co-founder of Hellman Valley Growers Company. Those were the acronyms I threw out. That is a cannabis brand that's focused on, I want to say, vapes. And do you have, what other products are you guys pushing on that one right
We're
now?
doing pre-rolls and we do diamond infused chillums.
Okay, I did see the pre-rolls. I just wasn't sure. And on top of that, is you're a veteran, a U.S. Marine Corps Forces Special Operations Command. You have a bronze medal and a Purple Heart medal. So I want to thank you for your service and everything that you've done for us here. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're from SoCal. Oh, well, maybe not from SoCal, but right now you are in SoCal. I've had the pleasure of working with Bryan through the chamber. So tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit what you have going on with the cannabis brand that you have, and what Battle Brothers is up to.
Oh, great. Yeah. So I grew up in an area right outside of Philadelphia. I called Doylestown, Pennsylvania. It was a really big like high school football town. We usually were ranked like top 10 in the nation, all that stuff. So kind of like your entire childhood, you're just thinking about playing for the high school team, and that's all you're doing. And I remember like my junior year, we were in the state playoffs and we played a team that had their head coach was a former head coach at the Naval Academy. And I had a decent game, so I started getting letters from the Naval Academy. My dad's getting all fired up, but I wanted nothing to do with the military at that point. I was like, I'm just gonna go to college, grow my hair long, play some football, drink some beer. If I got time, I'll find a class or whatever. And went to the University of Massachusetts, and I was playing ball up there and woke up one September morning, and I remember turning on the TV and I saw one of the World Trade Towers smoking. And I thought back to 1993 when Al Qaeda tried to bomb the World Trade Tower. I'm just like looking at him like, man, I didn't think 93 was that bad. So I get like a bowl of Cheerios. My phone rings and it's my buddy from Michigan, and he's like freaking out. And I'm just like still trying to wake up. And I'm like, what is happening? And he's like, I think we're under attack. And then I saw the second plane hit, and you're like, oh boy. And I started getting calls throughout the day. My buddy Eric Mayers, his brother worked in one of the trade towers. He talked to him when he was on the ground, but he said something like, I don't know where my secretary is. I'm going to go back and find her. And he went back into the tower and never seen again. I mean, Noel was killed on that day. And campus was kind of like a weird day on campus. It was just some of the classes were happening, some weren't. Just people were all kind of like, what is happening? And mind you, like cell phones aren't what they are today. It was pretty much landlines. So there really wasn't that much communication, especially on the East Coast. Everything was jammed up. So we go down to the football complex and hop on the table to get taped up. And my trainer's like, I don't think we're going to tape today. I'm like, okay. So I go sit in my locker, and we had like three big screen TVs and all the news is on. And I think we had like a dozen guys probably from the New York City area. And they're totally just a mess. Like they don't know what's happening. So our coach came in, had a quick talk, wanted to see if we wanted to go out and have a light practice. One of the captains was like, I don't think we should. He's like, that's fine. He's like, go home, guys. Call your loved ones. He's like, as you see, life can change really fast. So I was living with like four other players on the team. We went out and got a couple cases of beer, and we had the TV on, we're watching, and people are talking tough, and everyone's pissed off. And I remember at that point they started showing people throwing themselves from the building. And I remember they like showed this woman who jumped out, and she's holding her dress down as she's like falling ultimately to her demise. And I just thought to myself, like, how bad of a situation is she in where she's saying my best course of action right now is to just jump out of the World Trade Tower. And she was holding her dress down. She knew what was going to happen, but she was doing it with dignity, kind of like on her terms. It just kind of spoke to me. So I just got up and went into the restroom and looked at myself in the mirror and just said, it's time for me to go earn my citizenship. So I just knew at that point I was somehow, some way was going to get into that fight, and kept a lot of thoughts to myself and just finished out the season. And towards the winter time, we're getting ready for winter conditioning, and I'm losing weight. I'm running back from campus back to my apartment, and my roommates are like, dude, what are you doing? So we're just at a bar, and I just told them, like, guys, I'm going to leave the football team and transfer to Villanova University and join the ROTC and get into the military. So I transferred to Villanova. I originally wanted to be a fighter pilot in the Navy, and at Villanova and all the programs with the Navy program, you have an assistant Marine officer instructor, which is going to be a gunnery sergeant, and they were all drill instructors and all that stuff, and looks like Full Metal Jacket, all scary and all that stuff. And the guy was what they call like a reconnaissance baby. He went into the Marine Corps, enlisted, goes through a course called School of Infantry, and he tried it out for recon and made it and spent his entire career in force reconnaissance, which was kind of like the tip of the spear for the Marine Corps. At this point, the Marines were not going to join Special Operations Command. Marines are really big on not having other people in charge of Marines unless it is a Marine. So my whole goal at that point was to be a reconnaissance Marine. So I went through all that, had to go through officer candidate school. I graduate and I end up going into the Marines. I got selected to be an infantry officer, went through that course, and I got my first duty station in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and I checked into 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines. And about 7 months later, we went to Fallujah, Iraq. And so I finished that deployment, came back. And typically you stay in the infantry for a couple of years, but they're like, hey, we're going to give you your shot early. Why don't you go try out for recon? If you make it, we'll cut you orders over there. So I went through the recon selection, made it, went over there, and 6 months later, I'm right back in Iraq again. Like, I'll never forget the smell of the Euphrates River. I just remember that truck going over it and I'm smelling it. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm back in this place again. And that deployment was throughout the Al Anbar province, which is Western Iraq, where Fallujah and Ramadi is a really nasty area. And finished that deployment. I came back and we did stand up a special operations component. Pretty much President Bush and the Secretary of Defense, Rumsfeld, were like, we're not giving you guys an option. You're giving us special operators. So a lot of the guys from reconnaissance went over there. They asked me to go take selection. A lot of us went in. Very little of us made it through. I was fortunate enough to be one of the guys who made it through it. And from there on out, I was a team commander in special operations, conducting deployments in Southeast Asia, Africa, and as well as Afghanistan, in particular, the Hellman province. And that was probably one of the more volatile deployments I did in my career, was in the Hellmand. Give everyone kind of quick history on why the Hellmand was such a nasty area. It is in the southwest part of Afghanistan, and it parks right up next to Pakistan. And it had this huge river goes through it called the Hellman River Valley. So look at like the Mississippi River, essentially. And it's really kind of bizarre kind of land where it's like a triple canopy jungle, and you're looking up at these mountains and everything. And why it was so important to the Taliban is after Croptober, they literally would just walk back down to Pakistan in November. Like, all the significant events would just drop significantly. And they would just hang out. And then in the springtime, they would come back up, tell all their farmers to throw out the poppy. They would grow it, then cultivate it into heroin and sell it. And the Taliban would tax them. And literally, like, the Afghan, or especially in the Helmand province, their banking system was like heroin. I mean, every time we did a raid into a compound, I'll tell the Afghans, go find a heroin, and they would just come out with bricks of heroin. So it was really bad. The Taliban didn't want to give it up. We were trying to do a lot of different things in there. We had other Navy SEALs, other Marine Raider teams, Army Special Forces teams doing village stability platforms where they would dress up in traditional Afghan dress, fully bearded out, and they would help them build a well to stand up a police force and basically grow their local economy and provide their own security. My team was known as the Commando Team. So I was in charge of the 7th Afghan Special Operations Battalion. We would dish out their special forces guys to the VSP platforms to work alongside with the other guys. And we would keep the commandos with us, and we would conduct raids at nighttime to go after high value Taliban targets. And, you pretty much every time you flew in there, it was going to be a big gunfight. And July of 2012, we flew into this area called Kaligas, which we later found out pretty much was like the Taliban capital. We heard them on the radio as we were coming in. They're like, why are they here? Don't they know this is like our capital? Like, it was just a bad area. And during that mission, I ended up getting wounded by what they call an underbarrel grenade launcher. So it hit me, basically sent like basically shrapnel, kind of like razor blades all throughout the left side of my body. Hit one of my corpsmen where he lost part of his tricep. But to show how tough this guy was, after he recovered, he went over to SEAL Team 6. And then our dog handler, he pretty much went on like a 2-week vision quest. He shot in the Hellmand. He just dropped down like a ton of bricks and woke up 2 weeks later in Bethesda, kind of like, what the heck just happened? And during that firefight, it was so intense. One of my guys said it best. He's like, I now know what it's like to be in a popcorn machine, because the ground underneath of us was just popping up from all the ammunition hitting. And then remember, it's like a triple canopy jungle. Kind of looked like giants had their hands on the trees and they were shaking it because all the RPGs and small arm fires coming at us. And this isn't a bragging term or anything like that. This was just told to me by a general. He goes, this summer has been the bloodiest summer for Special Operation Forces since the Vietnam War, and lost a lot of guys. I gave out way too many Purple Hearts on my team. We lost a lot of our Afghan counterparts, and it was just really bad. So I returned from that. I got banged up again in a helicopter incident later on that deployment. So I think that deployment ended up, I had like 6 surgeries or something like that, like 3 from being shot, which I was able to stay. And then I had to do 3 more with my ankle, which they had to send me home for that one. But I came back on full duty, did a couple more deployments. It was just my time to transition out. And it was really around the 2016 timeframe, I just noticed there wasn't a lot of support for veterans. So I came up with the idea of Battle Brothers Foundation, where we did a 3-tier approach of personal, medical, and economic. Personal, like a big brother, big sister network, just help you get paired up with the person getting ready to transition, just there to talk to them. And it's a lot more difficult than people realize. Medical, we help out with VA disability claims. So if the veteran didn't get the rating they thought they deserve, we step in, we represent them free of charge, and we take care of it. And that's really big money for the family if you do get an enhancement in your disability rating. We also were doing, if a veteran was suffering with alcohol, opiates, or alcohol, or all the above, or post-traumatic stress, we can send to treatment centers to just let them get right again and then get kind of back out there and do some great stuff. And then the economic phase is find them a job, and not just any job. Like, what do they want to do? Kind of like your guidance counselor in high school. Like, you got $1 million. What do you want to do with your life? And that way they go forward with the same sense of purpose like they had while serving in the military, with the hopes they won't make a mistake they can't come back from. And, as I described, I was banged up from playing around on the playground a lot, just a lot of bumps and bruises. And my body was still pretty much at war with itself. And I couldn't sleep. I was just having real big issues. And that's when someone's like, why don't you try some cannabis? And never did it before in my life. I wasn't against it. I was just an athlete. I just didn't want to put smoke in my lungs. So I said, well, I'm desperate. I'll try it. And it really felt like a warm blanket wrapped itself around my brain. It was just the first time my body was at peace, and I was able to get a full night of sleep. And I was like, man, this is great. Like, I can go down to the VA. I'm 100% disabled. They'll give me 15 pills at the drop of a hat, but I'm just using this little vape cart. Why can't we just use this and get it prescribed to us from the VA doctors? So I had an opportunity to meet with some U.S. congressmen. And I just said to them, like, hey, what's the deal? What do I have to do to get this into the VA? And they said, if you can go get data and American doctors, you'll have a really good argument. So we partnered up with a firm out of Israel called Niametic Healthcare and Research Services. They said, for anyone to take us serious, you're going to need to get this FDA thing called an Institutional Review Board, where you're allowed to do human trials and you can actually publish in medical journals. And without it, again, no one will care. They're like, it's a Schedule I drug. It's going to be really expensive, and you probably won't get any federal funding for it. So good luck. And next thing you know, this idea came from a Paul Newman salad dressing bottle where it said 100% of profits to charity. And I just thought, what if we start an adult use brand where we just put 100% of profits back to our research and fund it that way? And we came up with Hellman Valley Growers Company. And the significance of the 4 letters HVGC, if you're a Marine Raider and you serve in the Hellman province, you become part of a group called the Hellman Valley Gun Club, and you get an HVGC tattoo on you. So I wanted to kind of pay homage to the men and women who went to the Hellman. and came up with that name. I went back to the Raiders. I briefed them up. I'm like, if you guys aren't cool, I'll change the name and I'll figure something out. And they're like, not only are we cool with it, can we get a job with you when we get out? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So with our first $50,000 worth of profits, we put that back to a study design. It went in front of the institutional review board, a lot of back and forth. They wanted DEA licenses. They wanted us to work with the NIDA program or the National Institute of Drug Abuse. We wanted nothing to do with them. We just wanted to control it ourselves. And through some very fortunate luck and some really good doctors, we got approved for an IRB. And with that, we were able to bring the University of California at Irvine on top to be our principal investigators. So now we have Israeli doctors working with U.S. veterans and American doctors validating everything. And that's kind of hitting the checks in the box that Congress needs.
Wow. There's so much to touch on there. It's like, where do you begin? That's crazy. I mean, I think I was going to get to like, did you experience being shot? But you covered that. I mean, I couldn't imagine not being what you described that you've been through. There's a video that you shared that I'm going to add in the link so that they can review that as well. And seeing that video just gives you a little clip of what you experienced. And that's pretty nuts. Thank you so much for the work that you've done and kind of putting it right back into the community in a different way. And I think, it's kind of nice to see that you've kept yourself aligned. Like you figured out how to get Battle Brothers funding and moving, and then you intertwined, even the name that you went with was very much part of your life. And I think when it comes to branding in today's world, when you are a living and breathing example of what your product is, which is what, the Hellman Valley Growers Company, that makes so much more sense to me. A little bit of your background. I had no idea anything related to the name, your brand name, to the river. So hearing your story, putting that together, it just shows the organic and authenticity that you have in our community. And I think that's super important to have. And then the drive that you have to continue the fight going that far up. I mean, as far as getting in front of the politicians, it's not fun. It's not, cannabis is, I think from the outside, if you're not like in the industry, a lot of people think it's just a bunch of stoners getting high and enjoying the freedom that we have in California. You hear the lot, back and forth on that, especially from the corporate side. But then you see the people who are in it, who are working and hustling. A lot of us parents who have families to take care of are very much part of this lifestyle as well. And so we're living it, we're breathing it, and we're making the fight. And you're doing a really good job with that. It was Niametic, you said that you guys are working with?
Correct. Yep.
And how did that all intertwine?
Yeah. I always tell people try to avoid comfort-based decisions to the best of their ability, right? So if you set your alarm clock 5 o'clock and you're supposed to go to the gym and you hit the snooze, that's a comfort-based decision, right? So I was invited to a UCLA cannabis symposium, and I was up in LA and I was trying to raise money for Battle Brothers and talking about what I wanted to do, and everyone's like, "Hey, good luck, kid," and just kind of graciously showing me the door. I was just getting my ass kicked, to be honest with you. And I'm like, man, my bed in San Diego sounds really good right now. But I'm like, you know what? You made a commitment to go to this thing. Just go and check it out. And it was led by a guy named Dr. Jeffrey Chen, and it had a bunch of medical people on the stage, and it was cool. It was like, okay, they're talking about what they're doing and the possibilities and all that. And we get a coffee break, and I go out, I'm grabbing a coffee, and I met this guy named Alon Blat. And Alon and I start talking. He's an Israeli. He served in the Israeli IDF or Israeli Defense Forces, and he was in special operations. And I kind of told him what I wanted to do, and he just got a big smile on his face. And he's like, I'm in the same boat. I have 100% PTSD. We kind of joke. I'm like, Alon, you live in the worst neighborhood in the world, and everyone hates you. And he's like, yeah, pretty much. It's just kind of how it goes in Israel. And he was telling me, he's like, listen, I founded this company called Niametic, and we've been doing cannabis research for about, at that point, it was like 17, 18 years. And he's like, we just came over to America. We really got our start working with the senior community in Israel. And they were on like CNN with Sanjay Gupta when he did that kind of groundbreaking interview back in 2016. And he's like, we want to get our hands on U.S. veterans because we know how well this could work and this success we're having in Israel with it. He's the one who told me, he goes, listen, you're going to have to get this IRB thing, all this stuff. We can help make that happen. But again, it's going to be expensive and really difficult. And he's like, I'm still trying to crack the nut getting American doctors on board. So we'll see how it goes. But just through sheer will and determination, we made it happen. And here we are today.
Wow. So they were already kind of doing that in Israel, and you're doing the model here with the American doctors and US vets.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the reason why we got approved. Our guy who's leading our steering committee is a gentleman named Dr. Victor Novak, and he studied with Meshulam. He's an Israeli. He at one point was in charge of Harvard's Clinical Research Institute. He's done a bunch of FDA trials to show how valuable he is at like the height of COVID. We lost him for a little bit because he had to run Israel's second largest hospital's COVID clinic. And he did this study in Israel, and I think they had like an 83% success rate. And I was showing one of the doctors on my Battle Brothers board who's from Stanford that study, and he goes, IRBs never hit that high. He's like, that's literally a miracle drug. And I'm like, well, there we go. So I really think when the IRB saw what Dr. Novak did in Israel, and he's like, listen, I'm doing the same thing again. It's perfectly safe. We're just doing it with Americans now. I think that's when we got the green light. So it really does help out. And, sometimes who can really open up some doors for you.
Yeah. And sticking to the plan. It sounds like if you went home that day, you wouldn't have, ran into that person. So it was worth it. But I think, we got to give it up for the hard work, and then meeting people who have the same drive for this purpose that you guys are fighting for, especially to be a voice for veterans, be a place for them. You with Battle Brothers, helping them, get right back on their feet. You being somebody that's experienced it is probably the best thing for that model to happen, because you know the ins and out yourself. You've experienced the PTSD, what will work, what doesn't work. So with that said, I'm sure that goes into a lot of the craftsmanship that you put into the Cannabis Brand. And if you don't mind, let's get into that juicy part of it. So are you using, farmers down here? Tell us a little bit about what you offer as far as product line, and then kind of like the craftsmanship behind it, if you don't mind.
Yeah, really, I mean, we kind of hit it with our distillate carts for the first thing that we had coming out. We had tremendous support from two gentlemen named George and Cody Sadler, who own a brand called Gelato. They brought us in and basically said, we'll get you guys up on your feet and, basically pay us back as you guys go along. So we were probably one of one brands in America that could put our product on the shelf for like $0 out of our pocket. And we just started off real simple with an indica, a hybrid, and a sativa cart, and just wanted to see what we had. And, again, this is where it's sometimes better to be lucky than good. We made one product where we just took Afghan Kush and animal cookies and put it together, and we called it Afghanimal. And I was thinking from a marketing standpoint, like, oh, wow, like Hellman Valley, Afghanistan, HVGC, Afghanimal kind of works. And when we got our first batch completed, I gave some of it to our Israeli doctors, and they called me up and they're like, what did you put in here? And I'm like, oh God, I'm like, what do we do wrong? I'm thinking all the negative stuff. And I'm like, well, Afghan Kush animal cookies. And they're like, this is doing exactly what the medicine should be doing. It's like, you feel euphoric, you feel good about yourself, you get a smile on your face, and you get some of the best night's sleep we've ever had. So keep it going. So whenever we have veterans who are like, I can't sleep, I'm like, go with Afghanimal. I mean, I can't say any medical stuff behind it, but word of mouth, that's doing really well. And to show how well it's performing, we took second place in the Emerald Cup with that Afghanimal. So really proud of that. And, basically all of our distillate carts are word of mouth from veterans of what has helped them with their post-traumatic stress. So if we're out there in the town, people might be like, hey, this helped me or that helped me. We'll make it, no shame in our game. And we have about 11 SKUs out there now, and they all work great, like varying from an indica to the hybrid to the sativa line. And then we just want to do some things with like some pre-rolls, just make inexpensive pre-rolls we can get out there, get a foot in the door with some of the stores and kind of build off of that. And then we got really excited with these diamond infused chillums. It's a lot of fun. The company who produces the chillums is out of Massachusetts, so it's made in America. It's pharmaceutical grade glass, so totally recyclable. And you get about 15 hits off of it, and you can take a couple hits, pack it back up, put it in your pocket, and keep walking on, and open it up again later on. It's going to be still good. So that's all been great, and we're looking to expand into more flower lines and other things as we continue to grow. In terms of where do we purchase from, I'll be honest, we're looking at the best prices we can get, and really at the THC quantity. Unfortunately, the California market has just turned to how much THC is it, even though no one cares about the entourage effect. I mean, I had 15% pre-rolls that hit great, and they were some of my favorite. I just couldn't move them because they weren't at 20%. So you kind of have to meet the market and what they want, and that is what it is. But when we get more into the medical side, our medical product will be either delivered in a tincture or a pill form, because that has been through clinical trials. And really, it's going to be a microdosing. So the daytime version, it won't get you quote unquote high. It's more or less, we know from the Israelis, you need a little THC to get the medicine into your endocannabinoid system to allow it to do its work. They have not seen a CBD as a standalone work by itself. Nighttime, we crank up the THC. We just have to, because the veterans do need that kind of euphoric high feeling just to kind of shut the day down for them and get themselves to bed and get a good night of sleep. So it's really exciting to learn a lot of this stuff. I mean, I was very much a newbie walking into the market, but every time you get on the call with the Israelis, you can talk to them for 10 minutes and you're going to learn 20 new things. I mean, they're just so far beyond our capabilities at this point. So it's been really exciting just to see how people are kind of gravitating to the brand. They know we're a brand with a mission, with a purpose. And it's also fun to learn about all the things this plant can do and the incredible upside potential of it.
Yeah, exactly that. It's helping, being able to help and be of value to our own community and still feel good at the end of the day when you lay down as far as what your brand's doing and who you're working with and who's behind it. So again, thank you for everything that you do in our community. We're going to do a quick rapid fire with you before we let you go. I thank you for sharing everything about that. We're going to put all the links here for you guys to find out more about how you can support Battle Brothers. Before we do jump into that, I know previously, just last month, I think we did a event. You did an event, and we, worked together with the San Diego community out there. Is there anything that you have going on right now in SoCal as far as events or anywhere we can support you as far as where your brands are at?
Yeah, we are going to have this one space where we're going to probably do a monthly Battle Brothers event down in downtown San Diego. So we're just kind of finalizing that, but keep a lookout for it because it's going to be a lot of fun. We do a lot of SB34 events. For some of you don't know what that is, it's Senate Bill 34, where we can actually donate our product tax-free through the track and trace system. When we do these events, it's not just like, hey, come here and grab your cannabis and leave. We bring in like taco trucks. We'll bring in live music. We'll have other veteran nonprofits or other veteran organizations show up where they can talk about what they're doing. And we have like a little kind of social areas. So usually people hang out for like 3 or 4 hours because that's really important to us to build a community. It's not like, hey, this cannabis is a silver bullet and you're going to be fine. That's not the case. It helps, but you also need to have a community of support around you and really want to try to build that. And on November 4th at the University Club, we're going to have our inaugural Battle Brothers Veteran Hero Ball at the University Club, where we really want to hope to raise some good money to finally get this study funded and just celebrate some great Americans who've really helped us along the way. So be on the lookout for that because we really love to see people out there, and it's going to be a really special night.
Nice, nice. That's out in San Diego, November 4th. Make sure everybody remembers that. We'll make sure we put the links to that.
Nice.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. Let's go ahead and jump into your 7 grams. This is just a little bit to get to know Bryan in general, not so much the CEO and founder, even though you've done incredible things. And it's an honor to have you here, just hearing your story and how you've served our country and now what you're doing here for our cannabis community, which I hold dear to my heart. So we're going to jump into number 1, introvert or extrovert?
I am an introvert with extrovert qualities. I literally had to do a psych exam for special ops, and they do that thing. And I remember I asked the doctor, I'm like, well, how'd I do? And he's like, I'd never had that question before. He's like, but here you go. And he showed me, and he's like, you like your quiet time and all that stuff. I'm like, yeah, I do. He goes, you're an introvert. He's like, you just have the ability to go out and kind of do your thing, but you really got to fire yourself up. So it was a really, I recommend people taking that test because it totally nails you. Like
Yeah,
it
it's
gets you.
always interesting to hear people's answer, but more men lean towards the introvert, which
Yeah.
is interesting. But they always say they do have a lot of extrovert characteristics. So I guess it's a matter of turning it on and off. But
Right.
it's draining for you guys for the most part. Where for women, we are more like infused by going out in big
Yeah.
settings. Okay, great. So number two, which I didn't really dive into, and I normally ask my guests about their morning routines just because I'm a fitness enthusiast. It's a little bit part of my background, but I added into this. So I'm kind of trying to figure it out through here. If we were to ask you what you would do more of, is it yoga or weightlifting?
Morning times, I'm definitely going to do yoga. I just kind of stretch out, clear my mind, get the body feeling good. And I really don't touch weights anymore, but I'll do a more intense workout in the evening.
Oh, okay. Are you more CrossFit or are you doing more
No, I
agility?
literally do like I just have so much arthritis in my body right now. So I literally just do like body work where I'll do push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, body squats,
Yeah.
things like that. Where I played football, I did the military thing plenty of times with the weights. No more. I just want to look kind of respectable at the beach. That's my goal.
I can respect that. Okay, awesome. Okay, this one's kind of going just to see where you vibe with as far as indicas and sativas and what you prefer. So we have just a couple randoms for you to pick from. And if we had, I have to ask this just because you said it, but Afghani's on our list, or if you had to choose from Jack Herrera, which one would you choose?
I'm probably gonna go with the Afghani just because I'm more of a nighttime smoker. I mean, I'll do it socially, but my routine is I come home at night, get the kids ready for bed, and at that point, I do my little session, and that takes care of me, and I'm ready for sleep.
Yeah, that's more of heavy, right? You would need more of a heavy indica.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I feel that. Okay, awesome. And this is for us who like to read still. And I know a lot of people don't like to do that anymore, but are you an audio cover book or a hardcover book?
Boy, I'm probably more audio now just because having kids and your time's limited. So I have about a 45-minute drive to work. So I'll throw an audio book on just to kind of keep learning and stuff like that. And it's been really good. I mean, it really helps you stay on top of your reading.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that. I'm a little bit of both, but this year I've gone to hardcover just to get more in depth with it. And I've never been a big reader, so it's a new thing for me. Sun grown or indoor?
Boy, I like sun grown. Wish we would do more of it.
Yes, yes, I know we're in SoCal, so we play with it right now. Living soil is my newest thing, which is what we can get our hands on. So if some people don't know, but that'd be the closest thing for us out here in the desert like environment. And then these last two are just a little bit to get to know your character as a person and maybe a little bit about your background to intertwine. Number six is, can you list three biggest influencers in your life that's created where your journey has taken?
Yeah, I mean, ironically, it's probably like my high school coach. He was a legendary figure. He built a great fraternity when he started coaching in 1969, all the way till he retired at 1999. It's pretty much anytime one of the players is in need, we can all call each other. Unfortunately, we lost him, but a lot of us always would say he was kind of like the validation guy. You would always call him up to say, "Do you think I'm doing this right, or am I raising my kids right?" and all that stuff. And he was just an incredible influence for a lot of us. And then definitely my parents have been huge, always supported me, even when I was, my mom was not happy with me when I'm like, hey, I'm going to join the Marine Corps. That's probably the last thing she wanted to hear, but they raised their kid and they know what I'm all about. So no matter through the thick and thin, my parents have always been there. And then probably, recently, I guess we could say it's been over 9 years, but, my wife, she really came into my life right before my deployment in Afghanistan, and she was a little bit like naive to what was going on. She's like, I know we were at war, but I didn't really feel it. And she got a crash course because all these guys that she met, some of them were killed. She had to go to funerals. She had to hear the stories when we'd have parties at my house. And again, like I walked down, I have a high paying 6-figure job. And I walked downstairs one day and I'm like, hey, I think I can help veterans with cannabis. And she's like, then you need to do it. And, with number one kid on the way, right? So not a perfect timing, but she backed me and she still backs me to this day. So those have been probably my three biggest influences right there.
Oh, I love that. Amen to that. Those are some good answers. Hopefully wifey catches this.
Yeah.
And last but not least, what brings you the most joy in life?
Right now, my kids. I mean, just going out there and playing with them. It's just we revolve around our kids, which is great. We know we get this kind of short window with them until they start hitting their teen years and things get different. We've all been through it. I mean, it's inevitably my kids will be like, "Get away, Dad!" But right now, we're kind of the center of their universe, and I'm just trying to suck up as much as I can of it and just really build them to be outstanding citizens. We were talking prior to the recording. It's just a kind of a weird time, but I'm just going to raise my kids to be gentlemen, and whatever they want to be in life, that's on them, but they got to be able to defend it. And so that's our main goal, is just to make some great citizens for our country.
Yep. Easy peasy. I like that. Old school, and it's easy to follow. I can respect that. And I thank you again for your time. I think your answers were amazing and heartfelt. So I always appreciate authentic relationships and the time that you've taken here to share your story. Where exactly can we find you, and where do we support you?
Yeah, so you can go on our website at hvgcompany.com. We got a little tracker of what dispensers we are in, so you can go pick up some great product. Again, your dollar, it's award winning, but your dollar is going to go beyond that, and you're going to go help save the life of a veteran. So really hoping we can continue to build some positive momentum for the brand. And then, I always laughed at these commercials when you'd watch them on TV about like every dollar counts for a nonprofit. Run a nonprofit, like every penny counts. So if you guys could help us in any way, go to battlebrothersfoundation.org. You'll see a donate button and click on there. If all you got is a dollar will make a huge difference, and we would greatly appreciate it.
Yep. You got it. We will link everything that we can to support you here on our channel. Thank you again for your time. And we hope to have you back someday.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute blast working with you.
Thanks, Bryn.